Hello and welcome to a new video where we're going to continue talking about this interesting topic and paper. We are handling topics such as AI prompt generation, vectorism, and different outcomes and algorithms and how this correlates with our current and previous economical systems over the past. And of course, today we're going to touch the matter about dark patterns and why, while launching a prompt and getting really immersed to it, we cannot even know the result that this is going to give us. Something really relating to Benjamin's topic and theory about the gambler's mindset. So, what's this all about? Remember, this is a channel where we talk about different papers, pull them out to the surface in order for other people to know what it's going on behind every Google search. And of course, information that cannot be pulled out on the surface easily throughout all these other web pages out there. The gambling psychology inherent in prompt engineering is often a design feature of dark pattern that vector platforms encourage. For example, through limited token limits, subscription tiers, and model access that structure AI access. These mechanisms create artificial scarcity around probabilistic output, intensifying the gambler's temporal compression that Benjamin identified. The premium features that promise better outputs mirror casino VIP programs, offering the illusion of privileged access to chance. The psychological architecture of these platforms deliberately recreates the conditions that generate what Benjamin called the gambler's addiction to phantasmagorias of time. I really like that name. And can be seen in what has come to be called token medicine in AI model use. OpenAI's transition from unlimited GPT access to credit-based GPT-4 usage is a good example of this dynamic. Users report developing elaborate strategies from rationing their monthly token allowances whilst pursuing increasingly complex prompting strategies, behavior that appears similar to the gambler's management of the resources under conditions of artificial scarcity. And when we talk about strategies, isn't that something that we tend to do also in a casino? Like, hey, with this strategy, you can win more coins, or you can actually win the game, right? But for example, in prompt marketplaces, where successful prompts are bought and sold, the gambler's superstitious knowledge is transformed into commodified expertise, research on the creativity of text to image generation. And this reveals how online communities have developed elaborate systems for sharing and monetizing prompt strategies. For example, when you go to a restaurant that serves a free bowl salad, but nothing has to go outside the bowl, that this already happened in the past. So people on the internet started like crafting strategies in how to fill out the bowl to the top without losing money and actually being inside the price for a full bowl. And yes, you can imagine the amount of pictures about salad rising almost to the top of the restaurant. But this tends to happen with this kind of models as well, because it's a winning system that users don't want to waste money, but also want to win and to have all the usage if they were actually paying and utilizing any premium feature so far. Users search for and sometimes pay for prompts that promise to unlock particular aesthetic effects, much as gamblers purchase systems that claim to predict roulette outcomes. The commodification transforms Benjamin's lonely gambler into a participant in a vast marketplace around chance. As we tend to talk about the webinars and online courses that can tell you like, hey, do you already know how to manage AI? Just click on the link in this description and you can find out those type of courses and those type of workshops that encourages the FOMO in people, the fear of missing out. But are you telling me about a strategy somehow? If this is something new, how do you know how to manage it? And how do you know how to make the best out of it? The concept of tokens, for instance, obscures the actual computational work being performed, creating an arbitrary ceiling currency that users must manage without clear understanding of what their consumption actually represents in terms of processing power or system resources. Is like online credits to say in some kind of way. AI companies currently provide almost no detail on the user's token allowance, which enables the company to change the quantitative number of tokens a user may use at will, as only an abstract representation is provided, usually as a bar chart showing usage. Same with the credits using on a casino. Those tokens are only valid inside a casino, nothing else. The commodification transforms Benjamin's lonely gambler into a participant in a massed marketplace surrounding chance. This commodification reaches its apex in the emergence of prompt engineering as a professional role. Job descriptions for prompt engineers frequently emphasize the ability to optimize and fine-tune prompts for consistent results. Language that masks the fundamentally aleatory nature of the systems. This professionalization represents an attempt to rationalize what Benjamin understood as essentially irrational, that is, a gambler's relationship to chance. Yet the very existence of such roles reveals capitalism's capacity to absorb and monetize even the most disruptive psychological and temporal structures. When you're in an online gambling system, when you're going to just put some money on a football team or on a basketball team, you have the option to also buy some kind of probabilistic winning type of chart from someone that calls out to be an expert. Well, nowadays, companies are paying for people to tell them, hey, how can I actually win on this new AI system? But this is something that is not only encouraged, but also people are looking forward to learn how to do that because people don't want to miss out and people want to make out of the best with the resources they have. So, for example, they can be paid more in order to do this type of jobs than regular jobs. And also now we have academies, online coding academies that are actually noticing that and also teaching you how to do this to have this type of capabilities for a company to hire you. The new age has come to us. So prompt engineering becomes routinized within established workflows, submerged within quality assurance processes, or undertaken with access to fine-tuned models and extensive computational resources. The aleatory dimension may be reduced or actively suppressed using stronger guardrails or conservative temperature settings. Similarly, users employing systematic A/B testing or working with low temperature settings that reduces stochastic variation may experience prompt engineering as more deterministic. The gambler psychology, it is theorized here that this applies predominantly to individual users interacting with consumer-facing AI platforms, such as ChatGPT, under conditions of uncertainty about model behavior and with limited technical transparency. You can actually access to this tool without an extensive knowledge of it and still have what you can see as positive outcomes or something that is helpful for you at the moment. The concepts developed should therefore be understood as describing a tendency within better capitalism's organization of AI interaction, rather than a universal feature of all prompt engineering contexts. The commodification of uncertainty can be seen as a dark pattern, showing how platforms design token scarcity into probabilistic systems. Subscription models provide monthly credits, token-based pricing that abstracts computational costs. Entire access promising better outputs appear to create the temporal structure of the casino whilst obscuring the material condition of algorithmic production. This represents what Benjamin called phantasmagoria, the way capitalism makes social relations appear as magical properties of objects. In AI platforms, the magic lies in the promise that the right prompt will unlock the AI's true capabilities, concealing the probabilistic nature of these systems, whilst encouraging users to assume that failures are due to inadequate prompting skills rather than to inherent limitation of the AI. However, this engineering of uncertainty is not confined to subscription tiers and token pricing. We also have that the result is a stochastic labor, where work is organized around the management of uncertainty rather than the predictable application of skills. Workers develop elaborate emotional and psychological strategies for managing the frustration and anxiety generated by unreliable AI systems, creating new forms of affective labor that the platforms extract as value. This transformation of affective experience into extractable value also signals a deeper shift in the organization of cognitive labor. This gambler psychology may have a mechanistic equivalent inside the system itself. But what do you think about it? The anxiety producing scarcity that platforms impose on users through credit limits is dialectically reproduced inside the model itself as a vector that measurably shapes its outputs. Worker and machine appear to be coupled through a shared geometry of effect mediated through the chatbot interface. Yet, unlike the industrial machines Marx described, LLM systems, large language models, transform encoded social knowledge back into contingent processes that require new forms of interpretative labor through contingent automation. This may represent a qualitative different organization of a relationship between human intelligence and technological systems. We have this in Marx's fragment of machines, where he anticipating how social knowledge becomes a direct force of production as the general intellect becomes embedded into technological systems. AI platforms create technological dependencies that intensify cognitive labor whilst systematically obscuring the social cooperation that makes algorithmic intelligence possible. The result is a form of technological mediation that neither eliminates human agency nor preserves traditional forms of skilled work, but rather creates hybrid assemblages where human interpretative capacity becomes subordinated to probabilistic systems that remain opaque. If we consider the process of computer programming using Cursor, Claude Code, or similar systems, for example, we see a kind of by-programming where the programmer merely prompts the LLM and then verifies its output. The stochastic labor represents a possible transformation in the organization of cognitive work that requires more systematic theoretical analysis. Prompt engineering becomes a noble form of algorithmic labor. This is work that produces subjectivity, information, and effects rather than material commodities. Yet, where the scholarly work has tended to be focused on the production of communication and effects within relatively stable social relations, stochastic labor emerges from the interaction between human cognitive capacity and unpredictable vector-based systems. This unpredictability transforms the temporal structure of cognitive work itself. Thus, The aleatory dimension of LLM interaction introduces complications that the system theories of cognitive capitalisms have yet to fully address. But what about contemporary prompt engineering? This represents a particular instantiation of this process, where collective linguistic competence through the accumulated knowledge of how to communicate, persuade, and reason has become encoded within a vector medium. Vector systems transform knowledge into vector space that workers must manage through increasingly elaborate forms of interpretative labor. Workers must develop elaborate psychological and emotional strategies for managing the anxiety, frustration, and cognitive load generated by unpredictable AI systems. This effective dimension of prompt engineering suggests that intellectual labor will increasingly involve the management of technological uncertainty rather than the direct application of technical skills in information societies. The gambler's psychology identified thus represents a key example of how cognitive labor is being organized under conditions of vector capitalism. These prompting practices reveal how cognitive workers develop what might be called prompt literacy, as the capacity to communicate effectively with probabilistic systems. This literacy appears to represent a new moment in the degradation of work, where skilled cognitive labor becomes subordinated to machine logic. Yet, the unpredictability of LLM outputs means that this subordination takes a distinctive form of as rather than direct automation replacing human cognitive work, we see the emergence of hybrid human-machine assemblages, where workers most continuously interpret and respond to synthetic outputs. This transformation has profound implications for understanding contemporary class relations. The prompt engineer occupies an ambiguous position of simultaneously a skilled knowledge worker commanding a high salary and a service worker whose labor is structured around managing the emotional and cognitive demands generated by vectoral technological systems. Contemporary AI systems can therefore be seen to represent the automation of the general intellect, where the intelligence of labor and social relations solidify in vector form. Prompt engineering requires the intensification of labor under new technological conditions. Nonetheless, the collective development of prompt engineering techniques reveals how the general intellect continues to develop through social cooperation even as it becomes captured by corporate platforms. Online communities sharing prompt strategies, debugging techniques, and interpretative frameworks represent an algorithmic factory as spaces where the boundaries between work and life dissolve as social knowledge becomes directly productive. Yet this collective intelligence immediately becomes subject to extraction and commodification by platforms that monetize user-generated vector skills and knowledge whilst hiding the labor that produces it. This suggests that Benjamin's gambler must be understood as both a figure of temporal experience and as a form of labor subjectivity. The gambler's relationship to chance prefigures the contemporary prompt engineer's relationship to algorithmic uncertainty, as they represent forms of work organized around the management of contingent technological systems. Yet, where Benjamin's gambler remained trapped within the temporal structure of capital, contemporary prompt engineering practices might contain possibilities for a form of epistemic decolonization through the development of alternative ways of knowing that resist capitalist appropriation. The question becomes rather The collective intelligence developed through prompt engineering can be turned against the platforms that seek to extract and commodify it. Does the collective intelligence that emerges from stochastic labor practices take forms that exceed the platform's capacity for direct communication? These emergent knowledge formations offer suggestive ideas for resistance to algorithmic knowledge regimes. I would like to know what will be the future of this. But in your words, let me know your opinion and see you in another video. If you want to know more about this topic some more, remember to follow, subscribe, and wait for the next piece of content that I'm going to be releasing soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.